The diagnostic market is growing. Specifically, India's diagnostic mass market is predicted to grow to $30 billion in 2022 from $12 billion in 2015 as per the IBEF study. Market split between imaging and pathology services is 30-70. So let's hear from our learned panel during session 3, which is digital adoption in diagnostics. Chairing this session, we have Mr. Girish Raghavan, the Vice President of GE Healthcare India Digital Engineering, tasked with the mission to accelerate digital transformation in healthcare technology. Girish comes with an extensive engineering, service, product development leadership experience of more than 2 decades in GE. He built a global install base and productivity engineering teams for imaging modalities. In his most recent role, he led the molecular imaging and computed tomography engineering teams in India, where he made remarkable products that made PET and CT scan affordable to the masses in India. The speaker for today's session is Dr. Harsh Mahajan, the founder and chief radiologist, Mahajan Imaging, New Delhi. He's the chairman of CARING, Center for Advanced Research in Imaging, Neurosciences and Genomics, chairman, Department of Nuclear Medicine and PET-CT at Sir Gangaram Hospital, New Delhi, and consultant, International Atomic Energy Agency. He's a former honorary radiologist to the President of India and national president of IRIA. With setup of India's first MRI centers in 1991, he is a pioneer in the field of imaging in India. I now hand over to Mr. Raghavan to take the session ahead.
Thank you, and good morning, good afternoon, good evening to the folks on the call. Before I hand it over to Dr. Mahajan, I would like to set a very brief context. It's a very, very pertinent topic what we're discussing today. As you all know, right, the industry is actually grappling today with several challenges, and in fact, it has become acutely visible during the recent COVID crisis. But I would broadly classify the challenges the industry is facing into 4 distinct buckets, right? First one is the availability of adequate skilled staff who can cover the huge need of this country. This includes clinicians, doctors, technologists, radiologists, medical staff. We have a significant shortage of trained people who can bring quality care to the masses, right? And second big aspect, second bucket, I would say, what we have is how we can improve clinical outcomes, right? So medical errors is the 3rd largest cause of death in the US, and technology is going to play a significant role in how do we minimize it and bring it to an optimal level. The third big challenge we are facing today is in terms of access and capacity, right? Every year we have close to 160 million people who come out of poverty, and the healthcare system today is not so elastic enough to accommodate all these what we're looking at today, right? So access to healthcare to tier 2, tier 3 cities, expanding the capacity so we can take on more patients is, I would say, a very pressing need we are seeing in the industry today. And lastly, I would say the 4th big one is the cost and productivity is a major killer today, right? So if you look at OECD countries, 20% of the healthcare expenses pretty much a waste, right? In fact, US spends around 18% of the GDP towards healthcare, and it is questionable whether the outcomes are proportionate to the spend what they're doing. So if you look at all these 4 issues, right, the digital adoption in diagnostics is expected to address some of the very pressing challenges I was explaining today, just a minute back. So we are actually very fortunate today that we have with us Dr. Harsh Mahajan. Dr. Harsh Mahajan has been a pioneer in this space and has been the forefront of innovation in the field of radiology. Some of the innovations what he has pioneered has significantly transformed healthcare in the country, making huge impact to delivery of quality and affordable healthcare to the masses. A lot of things he has done today, be it the first MRI, the first PACS, and so on and so forth, have been in a lot of ways the enablers for a lot of the systems we see today in the country. So without much ado, I would like to invite Dr. Harsh Mahajan to give his speech, and we will take some questions towards the end of it. So over to you, Dr. Harsh Mahajan.
Thank you very much, Girish, for that generous introduction. And thank you, CAHO and Dr. Joy Chakravarti for inviting me. It's indeed an honor. And, digitization is something that all of us now are using, in fact, have become a part and parcel of. And I will take you through some of what my impressions are about the role that digitization has played in diagnostics and what it'll play in the future. Much. So the topic proper is digitization of diagnostics. And if we look at digitization and go back in history, the first digital revolution was actually transformation of analog to digital hardware. Be it on the radiology side or on the pathology side. We all know about those dark rooms that we used to have where X-ray film was used, the X-ray beam would fall on the film and it would be developed and then you could see the image. Today, the digital transformation, more or less, even in the less affluent, less privileged, low socioeconomic countries, digitization has come to stay and digital x-rays are there forever. The change on the pathology side, especially histopathology, looking at the histology slides has been slow in coming. It has been more cumbersome. And somehow, because the pathologists are used to peering over microscopes, and not looking at digital data on a screen, it has been slow in coming. But the advantages are such that, and especially with affordable digitization equipments being available, the day is not far that histopathology in particular is going to catch up with radiology. The second digital revolution, and the most important really, has been adoption of DICOM standards, which is digital imaging communications in medicine. DICOM standard, which was set up in somewhere in 1985, and this is a standard developed for radiology by the American College of Radiology and the National Electrical Manufacturers Association, or NEMA. And this now provides support for whole slide imaging, digital slides, the way we look at any image, be it on a CT, MRI, X-ray. And this is by incorporating a way to handle tiled large images as multi-frame images and multiple images at varying resolutions. So what I do in my department or my center can be seamlessly transported and visualized in any other part of the world, in any other destination. The third digital revolution, and this was made possible because of adoption of DICOM standards, was the adoption of PACS, or the picture archival systems, by radiology, and to somewhat lesser extent by pathology. And this also came more again from the US, where, unlike other parts of the world, where the X-ray film and the report is generally given to the patient, in the US, the insurance companies had mandated that these be preserved in hospitals. And because of that, I remember my own time in 1987, 88, working at the MD Anderson Cancer Hospital, doing a fellowship in MRI there, that rooms upon rooms were filled with these X-rays, the CTs, MRIs, X-rays, nuclear medicine scans, because you had to store them, and you had to store them, if I remember correctly, for 10 years before you destroyed them. And they would take up valuable real estate, as well as it was cumbersome to try to find these for comparison when a patient came back for a follow-up scan. And that really was the reason why PACS came into being. And electronic images and reports can now easily be transmitted via PACS, and pathology departments are also getting on the PACS bandwagon to manage the increasing volumes of digital pathology images. And there are multiple companies and startups which are now able to digitize histopathology slides. And now the fourth digital revolution is upon us, and this is the revolution of artificial intelligence. Success of deep learning in image recognition is transforming medical imaging, radiology, pathology, ophthalmology, cardiology. It's going to percolate dermatology, anything where there are images. This AI is going to be used. And what we need in this, just as we had the DICOM standard in the 1980s, which has led to the transformation, we need uniform standards platform approach, which would be the pragmatic way for success of this revolution, which really, if you ask me, has started in the last 5-7 years, ever since deep learning algorithms became available. Now, there are several barriers to digital adoption. Cost. The initial cost can be extensive, and actually, you may not even know when you're developing an AI algorithm whether it will even ever come into clinical use. Then, of course, the knowledge gap. We are learning as we go along, and we have to pivot, we have to change, we have to improve, we have to change the product as we go along. And also, even though there are several AI algorithms which have US FDA approval, yet adoption in clinical practice has been slow, because what the developer says is his accuracy, is his sensitivity and specificity, generally is not being borne out in day-to-day clinical practice. So there has to be improvement and continuous improvement that has to be done. An AI algorithm developed in institution A may not work as well in institution B, which may be across the road, or an AI algorithm developed on a Siemens machine may not work very well on a GE or a Philips or a Hitachi machine. And this is and that's why we need heterogeneous data when these algorithms are being developed, and then a lot of validation testing where we at Kapil and Caring have been trying to provide a platform. The third, again, very important thing is inertia. No one wants to change. The radiologist, the pathologist is used, the doctor is used to a certain way of working and do not want to change. However, we've seen over the years that if a technology is useful, then adoption inevitably happens, but the inertia is there. And then, of course, very importantly, concerns about data privacy, about security, all of these are very, very important concerns, and these need to be addressed and slowly are being addressed as the digital revolution goes into an accelerated phase. Now, if we look at digitization of in vitro diagnostics, of course, it has to be patient-centric, and quality and efficiency are driving digitization of pathology and lab medicine, which had been slow to begin with, especially histopathology. And in vitro diagnostics, you have the pre-analytical phase, from booking a sample to collection to patient registration. And here we now have chatbot-based interactions, barcoding, which has become more or less universal, RFIDs and GPS tracking of samples, live location updates, just like we have on Uber, e-consent forms, which now are legally mandated, advanced CRM systems for patient interaction, automated appointment scheduling. All of these are a reality today. When we come to the analytical part, the process of sample processing and running tests on lab equipment, this is also now to a large extent, fully automated sample processing, which has no human involvement, and then track systems processing tens of thousands of samples automatically. Automated Q&A systems assuring nearly zero error, and digital pathology, which has integrated AI tools. This is starting, and this will become a reality very soon. And then, of course, post-analytical, the signing out of reports, the delivery to patients and other stakeholders. There are fully integrated reporting systems, digital report delivery to patients, integration with insurance, government databases, so on and so forth. These also are a reality today and in day-to-day clinical use. I give an example of digitization of Samplify, which is a digital-first startup company focused on sample collection. An ex-Siemens CEO has incubated this, and from order booking to phlebo assignment, phlebo tracking, sample collection, tracking and delivery of the sample, the informed patient journey. The patient can see himself or herself where the phlebo or a sample is, and then transparency in the lab and digitization, right from order life cycle, payment and reconciliation, digital TRF, informatic, digital integration. All of these have become a reality today and are in use in day-to-day clinical practice. And then lab automation has gone to a different level altogether, where this in some parts of the world is already in use, but the future of labs is this: integrated systems, maglev-based track systems, transported from the train systems, integrated supply review systems, middleware connecting disparate machines, all of this done automatically without any human interface. Another example of digitization, automating the manual processes. Advances in robotics allow end-to-end digitization of previously manual tasks. We used to manually strain blood slides. Today, they are automatically stained and read. Now, an example of digitization, our own example during COVID, our own COVID-19 story at Caring, at Mahajan Imaging, we were able to scale, and this is also something which has been a reality, scaling operations from being able to do 36 samples of RT-PCR per day to 3,000 samples per day, possible only because we used a digital backbone. Management information systems by our partner company, IT-DOS Infosystems, made all of this digitization possible, right? And if we look at the process flow, from online appointment booking to sample collection with tracking to report patient registration, robotic SRF creation, sample receiving and sorting on software, RNA extraction using automated templates, sample loading into PCR plate and machine, bulk test reporting and approval, report delivery to the patient with QR code to see that it doesn't go somewhere else, and then robotic result upload on ICMR. It's not easy to upload 3,000 samples per day if we were to do it manually. And in the beginning, when large players were doing it, they had so many people sitting and manually uploading. But all this became possible because a digital backbone, supported all of this. And from 36 samples a day, in one lab, we were able to go to 3,000 samples a day. Now, if we talk of digitization of radiology and imaging, since radiology is digital from get-go, we are digital, everything is digital. the scope for digitization is nearly infinite. From pre-scanning, appointment scheduling, scan preparation, risk assessment, we can even predict wait times to preempt patient dissatisfaction, predicting no-shows to optimally use equipment, live patient location tracking, intelligently picking appropriate scans based on disease suspicion. All of these are possible. In the scanning process, the process of image acquisition and associated reconstruction, deep learning-based technologies are using low-dose imaging, faster MR scanning, image translation, AI-assisted scanning to ensure more accurate scans, do a quicker scan and use AI to get pristine images, and scanning, image post-processing, reporting, and diagnostics, all possible using AI. Today, there are hundreds of companies making AI algorithms, thousands of academics doing it, and it's a very cluttered field. But when we talk of so many working and billions of dollars being spent yearly on it, and when we look at the landscape of the healthcare delivery systems, hardly any of these algorithms are in use. And so, we've already talked about digitization, predicting scheduled hospital attendance with artificial intelligence, which patient is not going to show up. And this is very, very robust. It seems, crazy, but it is possible. And then for predicting patient wait times and appointment delays, which really, especially in MRI, happens all the time, this can really take care of patient dissatisfaction. Now, there are advances in image acquisition which are pushing the boundaries of what is possible. This is our own work, which we presented about 2.5 years ago at the RSNA, Radiology Society of North America, where we just take these images, these are T2 weighted images, and from them, using an AI algorithm developed by us, you can actually develop virtual diffusion weighted images and pick up acute infarcts, acute stroke without actually having to run these images, so you can do it much quicker and with great accuracy. This is another crazy thing which our group attempted and which we've to some extent succeeded. You give me a CT scan of the chest and I will give you back a PET CT without actually having done the PET. And this is a real PET. This is what the AI algorithm developed. Same, a real PET. And this is a PET developed only from the CT scan. So the possibilities are immense. And then we have, automatic placement of cut lines, which can be done so easily and in a very uniform manner by using AI algorithms. So the inter-technician differences, when a patient came today and will come 3 months later, you will get images which are absolutely comparable. This is our article in the Lancet, and this was the first article ever published in the Lancet on use of AI in medicine, in radiology. And here we showed that we could automatically detect fractures, hemorrhages, all of that in head CT scans. Now, we feel that a platform approach is essential, and we've made Carpal a decentralized, uniform technology platform to connect the fragmented healthcare ecosystem, where we have the data ecosystem, the tech enablement ecosystem, and the analytics ecosystem. And in the middle is Carpal trying to connect the entire ecosystem with each other. And this is my last slide, which shows that Carpal, which is the caring analytics platform, consolidates AI across the healthcare ecosystem. It's a uniform tech layer connecting disparate use cases across ecosystems. Here, if we look at the bottom, there are multi-speciality hospitals, single specialty hospitals, diagnostic centers, primary care centers, and then there are different kind of imaging techniques that are used, right from MRI, CT to mammo, PET CT, DEXA. And then there are different kinds of use cases. neurology, ortho, cardio, nephro, all of these. And on the other side, you have the insurance companies with outcomes, cost, revenue, R&D, then different kinds of use cases, preventive, diagnostic, therapeutic. You have trials, data, publishing, IP, and then early detection, opportunistic screening, triaging, post-processing, prediction, RCTs, AI development, all of these. And Carpal is this layer in the middle which actually brings the two ecosystems together. And we sincerely believe that to enable the AI algorithms to come from the bench to clinical usage, you need this open-ended approach using a platform. This is like a data marketplace where you will be able to store the data, manage the data, mine the data, annotate the data, and the AI developer will be able to train, test, and ultimately deploy AI in hospitals and in diagnostics. So the key takeaways are the future of diagnostics is digital and the future is here. Patients expect similar experience as Zomato and Uber, and digitization of healthcare will drive the creation and adoption of AI solutions, which, as Girish mentioned, will enable access, will enable accuracy, will overcome the problem that we have of shortage of trained manpower, and ultimately will also reduce costs. Thank you very much for the invitation.
So thank you, Dr. Mahajan. I think it's a great session. So your journey has been an inspiration to generations of technologists like us and also radiologists across the globe. The way you have been able to lead this whole transformation, Dr. Mahajan, has been really very compelling. I would say a lot of people aspire to do that. So we have a couple of questions from the audience. I'll just pick up one of them at least in the interest of time. The first one is about the future. So the question is, can you elaborate a bit on the future of genomics and lab medicine and how it will transform healthcare in the next few years?
See, when we talk of in vitro diagnostics, genomics, actually, this is the era of evidence-based medicine. And what genomics does, it works at two levels. One is predictive medicine, and the other is precision medicine. Predictive medicine, we know now that many diseases, including many cancers, heart disease, dementias, neurological diseases, have a genetic basis. So here, once it becomes much less expensive than what it is today, we would be able to take a sample from the mouth or a blood sample and run it through an NGS system and be able to tell as to what are the mutations that that particular person has. He currently has no disease. What are the mutations and what are the possibilities of different kinds of cancer or heart disease or neurological disease, and hence do targeted screening for such a patient. On the other hand is precision medicine, where when you have cancer, when you have a tumor, then when you have that tumor tissue is run on a next-gen sequencer and you find the mutations, and based on those mutations you can take a call, does this patient need chemotherapy or no? Will he do well with radiotherapy or no? And if chemotherapy, the mutations are such, there are specific mutations which will tell us that this is the kind of chemotherapy to be used. So that's precision medicine. So I think the day is not far. Already for several malignancies, cancers, we know, and this is in use. And as more and more of these tools come into clinical practice, more and more cancers are being, use in more and more cancers is being discovered and coming into clinical practice.
Thank you, Dr. Mahajan. I think we have more questions come pouring in, but in the interest of time, we'll have to wrap up. Thanks for the very inspirational talk, Dr. Mahajan. Lots for us to learn from you on how to do this transformation.
Thank you very much.